Maybe just paint a picture for us. What does the electrified home look like 10 years from now?
Homes will be, where relevant, powered by clean energy, either from the grid or from the rooftop, and will have one or two electric vehicle chargers because they have fully transitioned to being an electric household from a transportation standpoint, and are soon, when they find an opportunity, migrating to electric heat pumps for both space and water heating, as well as induction cooktop for cooking. That to me sounds like an electron-rich home which can be powered by clean electrons.
All right, welcome back to the Solar Surge Podcast. If you're new to the Solar Surge Podcast channel, on this program we meet with the top thought leaders and the top industry leaders in the solar plus storage space to make sure that you have the most up-to-date industry and market information. Whether you're a solar installer, a homeowner, maybe a solar sales professional, we want to make sure that you know what's going on in the industry so that you can make the best decisions for your clients. Now, in today's video, I have a special guest for you. Arch Rao is the CEO and founder of Span.io, the makers of the Span Smart Electrical Panel. And if you haven't heard of Span, you probably haven't seen much of Solar Surge this year. It's one of the most exciting new products that we're talking about, and basically gives you maximum visibility and control into how energy is being distributed within your home, and allows you to make intelligent decisions so that you can stretch the running time of your battery backup. And with that, let's go straight to the interview. Arch and his company have just completed their Series B venture capital round, raising over $90 million to help with expansion of the company. And I'm really excited to chat with Arch about his vision for the company, what they've just been through, and where the company's going in the future. So Arch, thank you very much for joining us on the Solar Surge Podcast. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Glad to be here and happy to share more about our journey and our products with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know I've been following Span for a while now, but for those of you who don't know you and your company, can you start out by just telling us a little bit about your background and how did you get started in the renewable energy industry specifically?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I've been fortunate to be at the cutting edge of developing energy technologies now for the last 20 years. Ironically, I started off my career working on engines and power plants that were powered by fossil fuels, and I was working on trying to make them more efficient by designing control systems for them. Very soon I realized that that wasn't how I wanted to spend my career, and it wasn't also the most effective way for us to transition to a cleaner future. So I dropped out of the academic work that I was doing in the engine space, and I decided to join a very early stage company focused on grid scale wind power generation. This was a company here in California called Joby Energy. After having helped raise capital, build a team, and build some really interesting product concepts, I transitioned out of that company to work on developing optimization algorithms or trading algorithms for energy markets. So if you think about how real-time the energy market is in Texas or in California or in New England, it becomes very apparent that we have a tremendous opportunity to be transitioning towards more grid-scaled renewables, more distributed energy, and more storage and electric vehicles while reducing the overall cost of operating the system. So that was a very informative phase of my career. I learned a lot about how energy is transacted here in the US, how it's transmitted, how it's distributed, and how customers pay for energy. I still had the itch to go and build products and build companies. So soon after that, I co-founded a company called Vertigris that was focused on energy efficiency and metering. And it was mostly focused on commercial and industrial buildings and helping them understand where there were anomalous energy consumption patterns and they could avoid that or potentially upgrade their equipment. This was at a time in the early 2010s, if you will, when there was a strong push towards energy efficiency. There was a strong push towards improving the building envelope and the advancement of the Title 12 legislation here in California as well. So it was a very interesting experience again for me in building new technology, scaling a business, but ultimately also realizing that there wasn't a particularly strong product market fit for the technology we were building. And there was a lot more I could benefit from learning at being at a larger company and learning the operational chops of scaling a business. So soon after that, I was fortunate to join Tesla in the very early days of what is now Tesla Energy. And got to lead the product team there. That's the team that was responsible for the products like the Powerwall, but all the way up to products like the Megapack that are deployed at grid scale and the software layer that controls them. That was an incredible journey for me, both in terms of learning how to scale technology in new geographies across different types of installation contexts, so ranging from Powerwalls being installed here in the US, across EMEA and APAC, but also looking at large grid scale storage systems installed in Hawaii or Australia and virtual power plants that we've got to deploy. But the other aspect of it was I got to see firsthand the development of technology at a very high pace, right? A company like Tesla is very technology forward, and I got to see that from conception all the way to high volume manufacturing. And that's helped me in many ways think about the challenges and opportunities of decarbonization. And one central theme I kept coming back to is we as consumers have a tremendous opportunity to decarbonize if we move to an all-electric lifestyle. If we chose to drive electric cars, if we chose to heat our space and water with electricity as opposed to gas, and cook our food with induction cooktops. But that is severely limited today because of the electrical infrastructure, be it the infrastructure on the grid or the infrastructure in your home, that is our panel. And that really was a genesis of SPAN to say, what if I reimagine what the panel could look like? And here we are 4 years since deploying products to enable solar, storage, EVs, and home electrification.
Wow. Well, there's so much there that I would like to ask you more about, and I wish we had more time. But I guess let's start here. So you worked with Tesla in the earlier days, and obviously the company's also undergone massive growth over the past 5 to 7 years. I understand that you worked in the part of Tesla that produced the Tesla Powerwall and some of the home energy products that we're familiar with here in the home solar plus storage space. Can you share with us what was it like working for Tesla, and what was it like particularly looking at things at such a large scale? You know, here in the solar plus storage space, a lot of the products and companies are still in that sort of startup mode and that startup feel. And we even see a lot of the same small group of people at the trade shows and the expos. But what was that like, your perspective working from Tesla, looking at it from that perspective and scaling this to a worldwide basis? What can you share with us?
Yeah. Look, I think there were two aspects of being at Tesla that were very rewarding and very formative for me. One was just working with an exceptional group of people that were the best in their domain, right? Be it in the domain of engineering, be it in the domain of power electronics, be it in the domain of fulfillment and deployments and installation. And that was a great opportunity for me to learn from peers. And the other aspect was just the importance of being true to the mission of the company, right? Tesla obviously was mostly known at the time for electric vehicles, but the underlying rationale for why we built a product like the Powerwall was very clear from across the organization. It came from the point of view of wanting to charge cars with clean electricity and knowing that solar and wind are inherently intermittent and thus requiring grid-connected batteries, be it in the home or out in the broader sort of front-of-the-meter solutions of storage, as being a need when you think about managing that intermittency and therefore delivering a full cycle electric vehicle experience, if you will. So for me, it was being tethered to a really fast-moving ship, if you will, and being able to have a small but important part in scaling this technology. It wasn't that solar was new, it wasn't that batteries were new at the time, but I think Tesla really helped commoditize that space. Tesla really helped bring Powerwall to the mainstream, make it possible for solar customers to adopt storage rather inexpensively and have it be designed for purpose, right? It wasn't a cobbled together solution that originally was meant for solar. It was a purpose-built battery that was going to provide homeowners backup, and it was the best at doing that. Where I saw opportunity was that as customers were adopting storage, they were often faced with a fairly complex set of questions. Either they were forced to answer the question around what part of their home they'd like backed up, and very few people knew what circuits powered what part of their home, or they had to make the difficult choice to spend money on multiple batteries to back up their whole home. And that's where SPAN, I think, really shines, is we're able to give customers the option to back up their whole home with a single battery and a SPAN panel while giving them the opportunity to software control all the different loads in their home when they're on grid or off grid.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would have to agree with you with what you said earlier. I've been doing battery systems for over 10 years. And when I started, the storage segment of the solar industry was very, very small, very, very much fringe. We were doing purely off-grid projects in many cases, or just off-grid backup, no interaction with the grid, or were just connected to certain loads within the home. And I think Tesla did an excellent job of mainstreaming the idea of having a home-level energy storage, having distributed energy storage down to the household level. But of course, as you just said, that means that now homeowners need to be more conscious of energy budgeting and energy management, right? Because it's not like, the grid now, we do kind of think of it like an always on as much as you want utility, just like the water, you turn this faucet on, you don't really think about where the water comes from, it's just there. We've been accustomed to thinking about our energy the same way. Of course, when you introduce battery storage, batteries have a finite capacity, right? And so the idea of the energy budget has now kind of come into the consciousness, or at least those of us in this space where we're thinking solar plus storage, and where do I want to spend my energy? And that's where I think your product, does excellent. The two words I always say are visibility and control, so you can see where the energy is flowing, and you can control what you want and where you want to spend it and where you don't. So was this something that was just an obvious next step for you, or was there some sort of tipping point where you realized, like, hey, the whole world needs a better electrical panel?
Yeah, it obviously it comes from having had a lot of hands-on experience deploying solar and batteries and electric vehicle chargers around the world, and starting to see that empirically, as customers move towards larger solar systems, when the cost of solar came down, as customers adopted more electric vehicles and therefore home charging, and as customers adopted storage, the incidence rate of panels being upgraded or replaced was just shooting up, right? Back in the day, when it was just a solar installation, oftentimes installers would try to avoid the cost of the electrical work by maybe resizing or undersizing the solar system. But now customers wanted to be able to offset as much of their energy as possible with clean solar power produced on the rooftop, right? So that was, if you will, the impetus to say there's got to be a better way of doing this as opposed to all the third-party components that are being slapped on top of an existing panel, or all the labor required to add a sub-panel and relocate your loads. So I certainly did benefit from having seen installations at scale and seeing that this problem was not local, it was global, right? No matter where you went, the panel is a necessary device in every single home and building, and it was increasingly being replaced because it was the limitation, it was the constraint. The other aspect of it is looking not backwards but forwards. While I think solar has been by many means the leading change agent for distributed energy resources, right? It came before batteries, it came before electric vehicles. I don't necessarily think that it's the right anchor product looking forward, right? A lot more homes can choose to decarbonize by adopting electric alternatives for their appliances, right? And that can happen with or without solar, right? So when you think about the continued electrification, that's going to happen through consumers adopting electric vehicles, consumers adopting heat pumps, electric water heaters, or induction cooktops, and all of these also end up coming back to the same focal point. Is your panel capable of supporting that electrification? And if it's not, or if it's too expensive, consumers are going to fall back to adopting gas-powered appliances for the next 10 years, 20 years, and that's just a missed opportunity for us to decarbonize.
Makes sense. That makes sense. And particularly in California, as my business is starting to do more work in California, we're noticing that the incidence of needing panel upgrades is much, much higher there. And so I suppose if you are going to upgrade your electrical panel, why replace it with the same old technology from 40 years ago? Why not do it a better way, leveraging current information age technology? So I think that's brilliant. Now, Arch, you just completed your Series B fundraising, I believe just last week. Is that correct? Over $90 million?
Yeah, we just announced it last week. It's been in the works for a couple of months, and we wrapped up our Series B2. So that was a $96 million fundraise, which brings our total sort of invested capital, if you will, just over $230 million so far.
Wow, that's incredible. And congratulations to you, by the way. I know what a feat that is. And So that means that there are some pretty big investors that believe that you're going to be able to bring your product to scale. And frankly, I mean, you have a product that virtually every household needs. It will need your product, or it will need some competing version of that product in the future, I would imagine. Can you share with us a little bit, maybe for those entrepreneurs in the audience, what have you learned about the process of venture capital fundraising and scaling up?
Yeah, look, I've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of folks along the way during my career. In past companies that I've either co-founded or I've been an early member of, I think that experience has been invaluable. What's been, I think, unique in this experience building Span is that there is just a lot more committed capital focused on enabling technologies that can abate climate change. There are a lot more large sources of capital from limited partners, from private equity funds, from family offices and endowment funds that are encouraging investors, venture capitalists, if you will, to focus on solutions to climate change. And that's one theme, if you will, and that's been very promising. And that continues to be the theme even as we look at the current economic landscape, where I think we've seen technology companies take a nosedive in public markets or interest rates going up. Despite all of that, solutions that are focused on abating climate change have, I think, a strong chance of receiving capital, be it venture capital or project finance capital, if you will. What I think has been helpful for our story specifically is that we've been ruthlessly focused on execution, like delivering product, deploying systems at scale, building the right partnerships, and delivering impact for the homeowners. But along with that, we are trying to build a solution that is part and parcel of infrastructure. It's not a temporary solution, it's not a piecemeal solution, it's something that we believe can be part of the home, but also part of the broader electricity grid for a long time to come. Just like you pointed, like panel once installed is going to be in your home for the next 20 or 30 years. So when you take the broader climate problem and you try to address it with lasting solutions that are tied to infrastructure with new forms of hardware and software technology, then I think the play is very relevant for venture capitalists. And that's what we've seen as being a successful or a compelling story to tell.
Interesting. Okay. So on the one hand, it sounds like all the stars are aligning, so to speak, in terms of support, public support, financial investor support for this type of venture. Now, I have to say, I just got back from SolarCon in Salt Lake City last week, and this was sort of the big conference of the residential solar industry, salespeople, contractors, installers, and I've got to say, pretty much unanimously, business leaders in this space are in agreement that we're facing some headwinds here in the residential solar sector that we haven't faced before, namely higher interest rates, tighter credit requirements, higher fees. And so I'm curious, from your side as an equipment manufacturer that is, ultimately your product is being installed by residential, in most cases, residential solar installers. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing as a manufacturer in the current economic environment?
Look, there's never a dull day building a company, especially a hardware technology company in the energy space, right? If you think about the challenges from 2 years ago, the pandemic limited sort of the ability for installers to be out and in customers' homes and installing product. And last year we saw the rising cost of components. There was a consequence of constrained supply chain environment, and then now we're seeing sort of the overall impact of growing interest rates. Ultimately, though, I think the longitudinal value of what we're building and what the solar industry is doing is very, very strong. Like that isn't going to fundamentally change, right? Products are becoming more functionally capable. They're becoming more economically compelling for consumers to shift towards. Like, to maybe draw a very simple example, right? Electric cars 15 years ago were not functionally comparable to a IC, like an internal combustion engine, and they cost a whole lot more. But now you have every major auto OEM essentially pivoting to becoming a full electric vehicle manufacturer and making cars more affordable, right? I think there will be a similar transition when you think about buildings being decarbonized and electrified as well. Outside of obvious solutions that have been proffered by a number of entrepreneurs in this space, including folks like you that are deploying products out in the world, including things like simplifying the permitting process, reducing the overall cost of an installed system that will lower the burden of adoption for customers. I think there's an opportunity here for today's solar installers to expand their product portfolio to include electrification solutions for the home. A lot of the trades are similar, a lot of the sales motions are similar, a lot of the value propositions are similar. It doesn't have to be led by solar and followed by storage. It could be leading with an EV charger. It could be becoming a cross-functional electrification solution provider, and I think leading with heat pumps. And you combine the expansion of the product portfolio with sort of the amazing tailwinds we have with programs like the Inflation Reduction Act and the rebates available through it. I think the industry overall will stand taller.
Great. And I'm curious, again, from my perspective, a lot of what I'm seeing is residential solar installation and residential solar installers. That's just the ecosystem that I play in. Do you find that there are many new home builders that are choosing to incorporate your product, or are there other channels through which you can get your product in the hands of homeowners?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think new home builders represent a very unique and captive opportunity that we're trying to unlock. They've also obviously faced in recent times some of the same headwinds around growing interest rates and mortgage rates that have limited the speed at which they're deploying homes, right, new homes. But the combination of regulation around solar being included in new homes and increasing regulation around limiting the availability of natural gas or gas-powered appliances in a home, I think will all lead in the right direction, or all pointing in the right direction for new homes being a great opportunity for us to deploy not just smart panels, but smart panels with resiliency, with home charging, with electric appliances and solar. Outside of these two vectors, i.e. the solar channel and the home builder channel, I think more broadly we see a lot of opportunity with even traditional appliance manufacturers now wanting to offer electrification solutions and finding that in 2 out of 3 homes across the US, the addition or installation of a heat pump might be gated by the amount of electrical capacity you have in your panel, and is going to force the panel upgrade anyway. And that's an opportunity for them to bundle these solutions and say, look, with a span panel, you're upgrading the panel to what is future-proofed, if you will, but more importantly, you're avoiding the really expensive cost of having to upgrade your service line, which is calling the utility and saying, can you please upgrade my wires from 100 amps to 200 amps or more, right? That is a cost prohibitive and not an elegant solution for scale. And I think we're seeing that channel pick up a meaningful amount of momentum as well. And as we look a little further out into the future, I think there is a very, very strong rationale for energy providers or utility companies to partner with solar installers, with appliance manufacturers, and with companies like SPAN to offer smart panels as an alternative to investments in grid improvements, right? As a non-wires alternative, if you will, right? That makes it possible for them to get more access to data they generate, but more importantly, now you have a built-in demand response platform or a virtual power plant platform that can control generation, storage, and all forms of loads in your home.
Incredible. Now, I recently heard the news about your integration with Enphase, the tight integration between the SPAN Smart Panel and the Enphase IQ battery backup system. Are you planning any other more tighter integrations with any other battery storage systems or other solar brands?
Yeah, that's a great question. And look, we're excited about bringing to market a solution that works with Enphase. Enphase is a well-recognized brand, not just in the solar space, but now increasingly in the storage space as well. And we really look at it from the perspective of ease of installation and value proposition for the customer. So with our remote meter solution that now pairs with Enphase batteries, or really any AC battery, we're able to offer the full functionality and capability of the SPAN app and the SPAN panel, while making it a lot easier for installers to offer the products combined to the homeowners. We plan to continue to support the leading storage brands like Tesla and SolarEdge and Enphase, but we are also starting to see some other emergent brands that are providing comparable capabilities at potentially similar price points or even lower price points, and we're exploring ways we can do a tighter integration with them to maybe reduce more devices that have to go into a home, right? Maybe there isn't a requirement for an additional gateway box or a disconnect box because some of that is already built into our panel. And we'll have more on that soon.
That's excellent. And yes, I would also agree with you. One of the things I noticed going around the trade shows this last year is that there are so many new battery manufacturers and new battery brands. So some of them are from brands that you're already familiar with in the solar space, but the battery product in particular is a new offering. And so it's very interesting for me to see this, first of all, just because, again, when I started, batteries were a very fringe, sort of small corner of the solar industry. Now it is becoming mainstream. And of course, with NEM 3.0 is accelerating that change. I guess I'm curious here, from your perspective, do you see any standards emerging in terms of a smart panel communication standard, so that instead of having to do custom integrations with each of these brands, there becomes a sort of a common language, if you will, for a smart panel to communicate to a battery or to an inverter, so we don't have to keep doing all these one-off integrations?
That's a great question, and I'm really hopeful that that's directionally where we're headed. I think the way we want to think about it is, can we get to a place where SPAN, as a smart panel manufacturer, publish or works with integration, either API integration or CAN bus integration, that can be utilized by any of the battery manufacturers, especially as we get to a place in time where batteries are becoming commoditized, much like solar modules have been and solar inverters have been, right? That makes it possible for homeowners and installers to right size the storage system for what they need in their home, for the types of loads they have in their home, and the type of roof they have, and the amount of solar they're going to put in their roofs, so that they can get this functionality in today and over time, right? This also becomes really helpful if you think about it from the context of the market mainly being solar plus storage attached today, as opposed to storage standalone, right? There's a much smaller percentage of installs that are deployed as storage only, which means there are over 3 million homes that already have solar that are being underserved today, and I think that's a missed opportunity, right? Collectively, I think many of us would love to be able to go back to our existing customers and offer them a low-cost solution with a smart panel and a battery system. And we'd like to think that we can set the stage for that. We plan to be able to offer works with type of functionality over the course of this year. And we're hoping that we can find more partners that are willing to adopt that standard, if you will, and implement it on their own systems.
That's great. Well, it certainly appears, from my perspective, it appears that you're at the front of the pack. So hopefully you'll be able to sort of shape and influence what those standards look like. But ultimately, it seems that that's where these things go, is there becomes some sort of a common language between the various components, so that everything can work together as one integrated system. On that note, where would you like to take your company in the future?
Our vision, if you will, is to enable electrification for all. We want to be relevant in all types of homes, all types of buildings eventually, but we're taking a very measured approach to that. I think the medium to long-term opportunity here is for us to enable as many homeowners to make the choice to live a decarbonized lifestyle, i.e. move towards an all-electric home. And we have a really ambitious mission to be in 10 million homes by the end of the decade. That is, SPAN enabling either full or partial electrification, and potentially with your own clean energy generation on your roof over the course of this decade.
Wow. Well, Arch, I know that you're a very visionary guy, and if you could maybe just paint a picture for us, what does the electrified home look like 10 years from now?
Yeah. I think structurally it looks more or less what it is today, right? I think if you were to think about it from the standpoint of the electrical system or the nervous system of the home, if you will, it has at its core a gateway that is able to act as a router for all things power and energy. That's really what we're building, right? And the most ideal location for that is your panel, is your distribution board, which serves as the interface between the grid and your home, and it naturally serves as the connection point for all things solar or batteries or EVs, and your existing loads, like your HVAC system, your refrigerator, your pool pump, etc. I think in the future, this will be a commoditized solution, that smart panels will be just panels, right? And that homes will be, where relevant, powered by clean energy, either from the grid or from the rooftop, and will have 1 or 2 electric vehicle chargers because they have fully transitioned to being an electric household from a transportation standpoint, and are soon, when they find an opportunity, migrating to electric heat pumps for both space and water heating, as well as induction cooktop for cooking. That to me sounds like an electron-rich home, which can be powered by clean electrons.
Excellent, excellent. Well, folks, this has been an interview with Arch Rao, CEO and co-founder of Span.io, manufacturer of the Span Smart Panel, and of course, one of the top thought leaders and visionaries in the solar plus storage space. Arch, I just wanted to say thank you again for taking time to sit down and chat with our audience here at Solar Surge. And I guess before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to share, anything else that the audience should know about you or about Span and what to look for in the future?
First of all, it's been my pleasure chatting with you, Joe, and I really appreciate all the work you do to both educate and evangelize the consumers about the benefits of clean energy. And I think if I wanted to leave everyone here with a message, I think it's that installers make a critical piece, or an incredibly important piece of this ecosystem. As I think about more and more homeowners making an educated and somewhat obvious choice to move to a cheaper, better, cleaner future, we're going to get to this inflection point soon where demand is going to far exceed our capacity to deploy these solutions. And I'm really hopeful that we're able to train and bring up more installation capacity and fulfillment capacity with people moving into the trades.
Excellent. Well, folks, again, this has been an exclusive interview with Arch Rao, CEO of Span.io. Arch, again, congratulations on the completion of your Series B2 capital raise, and I wish you success, and I hope to catch up with you again in the future.
Absolutely. Likewise, Joe. Take care.